Our particular theme today is Let There Be Light, and as part of our worship this morning, we are talking about our plans and proposals and visions for the renewal of the wiring, the lighting, and the AV, and we're looking to do that within the next year, God willing. I'm delighted that we have with us some of our team this morning, two architects and also Andy Thornton, who is CEO of Foodbank, that has great expertise in some of these areas as well, and a very warm welcome to you, and we look forward just to saying a proper hello to you in just a moment. I'd like to introduce some of our team who we have with us this morning, Andy and Mark, and there's Mark and Andy, if I could just introduce you briefly as well for a couple of minutes. So, Des, do you want to join us first, and Mark, perhaps come together as your two architects and less known to us here. Though Des, you were with us 3 years ago to talk about the lighting scheme there, which was great. And if you can come this side, you're going to pick up the people at home. Des, do you want to introduce yourself briefly to us? Just say a few words.
Hello. My name is Des Hill, I'm an architect, and my first visit to this church was about 10 years ago. And it was a very seminal moment because I found myself becoming excited by architecture again. And in particular the architecture of this church, which is very special. And what was very apparent was the connection between art and the building and the church, which is a tradition which isn't always followed through in recent times, and the quality of the light in the church I've since become very appreciative of, even though it was pitch black when I first came here. And it's been an incredible journey being involved with this church, and I'm helping Mark and the team to move forward.
Thank you, Des.
Helping.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. Yes, there we are. Good, Mark, good to have you with us. I'm just going to do something to this thing over here. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Mark Eddison. I'm an architect. I actually employed this. So I run the practice, MEP Design, and I'm your quinquennial inspector.
Andy is CEO of Foodbank and Bantam and Shopping and so forth. And Andy, you've got particular expertise in AV and audio visuals and things, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here again. I'm often here in the week when you're not here with the Foodbank and the Bounty Club. I love this building. First time I came into it, I thought it's a lucky hidden treasure, really, isn't it? And historically, I've been involved in the use of creative arts in worship. I even appeared on the telly once with a group I was with. They use a lot of audio visuals in our worship, big screens, live music, recorded music, and a lot of ritual and imagery and things like that put together in one place. I think that it's important. We're in a very visual culture, particularly young people. They respond to a lot of, they spend all day on their phones going to pictures. But pictures speak in a way to them that they don't always to us. So I was thinking it's very important that we get this church equipped for using other images alongside the serenity of the visual space.
Lovely. Andy, Des, Mark, thank you so much. We'll hear more from you in a little moment. I've asked Des and Mark if you would like us to say a little bit to us about the specialness of this building. We've heard a little bit and we've seen the video and so on, but Des and Mark, thank you.
Hello again. When I was standing here previously, I referred to the quality of the building and the quality of the church and the art and the symbolism. But what was very striking to me in the video we've just seen is that the church is a community and what it is represents to the community. And especially in more recent years, as a becoming involved in the provision of food bank and provision of support for the community, and I think that's very admirable, Martin. The specialness of the church is reflected by the fact that it is a Grade 2 listed building. Am I too close?
That's fine then.
And we have been doing some work to see if it's feasible to raise this listing to a Grade 2 star. Of all the listed buildings in the country, about 5% are Grade 2 star, probably 1% is Grade 1. But with the upgrade, that does bring with it some tax advantages improving the building and looking at the setting of the building and the relationship to the town. We're very aware of the fact that although it's 65 years old, it's in reasonable condition for its age. Sitting outside in the rain for 65 years, anything's going to deteriorate. We've renewed some of the roofing, and the leaking, I think, has stopped now. What is also important is the condition of the concrete tracery to the windows, something that we are very aware of, but is probably invisible to the general public. But it's manifested by the need to protect some of the windows because the concrete is starting to fall away. And that's a deterioration which we propose to halt, to repair what damage has been done, and we've done a survey to identify any other areas that do need attention and immediate works to hopefully safeguard the building for another 65 years. One essential thing which we've touched upon, which is the thrust of this gathering, is the provision of the lighting.
We'll come to that in a moment. Sorry? Come to the lighting in a moment. Come to the lighting in a moment.
Yeah, we'll come to it in a moment. But it's, from the point of view of the congregation, that is at least, if not more important, than the repair of the roofs and the fabric, because it affects you all very directly and it helps you to worship in this building as well, if we're able to see what we're doing. And then following on from that, there are improvements which can be made concerning the disabled access to the church, levelling out the various steps around the building, and a coat of paint in conjunction with new lighting. I think I could see that transformed the experience of worship in this very fine church. And then thinking further ahead, there are initiatives in the level council to do with the setting of the building, the upgrading of the manors, if that's the right word, behind us. It's true to say that the development of Harlow hasn't really respected or enhanced the setting of this church. So we're looking, it is hoped that some of that will be addressed. And my own personal hope, which I've expressed, is that the church is standing on what is known as College Square, which refers to the fact that there used to be a college there. But as the college is no longer there, we would argue very persuasively, I hope, that church square could be renamed St. Paul's Square, which will then give the church a proper status within the town and the townscape.
Thank you.
I just want to perhaps think about the value of this place to the town of Harlow. Not just as a building, but what does this place mean and why is it symbolically important for Harlow? And I think in a secular world in which we live, to have a space like this is so important and immeasurably so. And it's very difficult to measure because you can't measure things that aren't measurable. One of the things that a place like this does, it reminds me of Gothic cathedrals and what they did, which was to lift your eyes upwards. And you come to a space like this and your eyes are lifted up. And it has something to do with the quality of light and the way light is introduced into the building. And I know that you're looking at relighting projects. So thinking light is, if you like, a natural light is a metaphor for divine light. And the thing I love about this is this light is sort of encapsulated above our heads. And we're forced to look up because the light is there. And of course, divine light is transformational. And as we look up, we can be transformed. And what I love about this building is the way this is a 20th century interpretation of the way Gothic buildings handle light. It's quite traditional in its form, but very special because it just encapsulates a mid-20th century idea of how those Gothic cathedrals worked. there are some tweaks, and there's some interesting things about the plan. You've got the organ and the choir gallery, that's quite unusual. You've got the bell tower, the loggia, the frontis, which is slightly unusual. It's not sort of so Gothic, but just the way this building is interpreted, that architecture into the 20th century, and lifts our eyes and makes our aspirations look upwards rather than, if you like, horizontal. I think it's a wonderful space. And I think that's so valuable to Harlow in a sort of secular environment. And the fact that the local authority is starting to think about the setting, I think is very encouraging, and improving the setting, because the setting of this building is just so antithetical to the quality of the space, if you don't mind the sense.
Thank you. Well received, and there will be available to all online a copy of our little leaflet, There Be Light, Next Steps. And if you look at the back of that, our aim today and this autumn is to raise £60,000. It could be more than that, but we're aiming at £60,000, which is only half of what we have done twice before. Around about 2004 to 5, we raised 130,000 or thereabouts as a parish, and in 2010 we raised about 110,000 thereabouts. So we know we can do it by God's grace. We did the high roof, we've done the heating, we've done quite a few other renewals, including the disabled toilet. The church needs power. The church needs the power of the Spirit, but as we look inside here, we see our 3 goals, by God's grace, to address in this coming year: rewiring the whole site, new lighting, and new audio visuals. We need electricity. We need electricity for our musicians, for the organ, for the Foodbank, fridge and freezer, for the lighting, and we need the heating as well. Our wiring was installed in 1958 or thereabouts. 3 circuits in the roof or up above, 1 left. It is on. That's it. We have these floodlights, they're awful, aren't they? They get in your eyes. We have extension leads going around. There's a very long extension lead that leads all the way down here to the fridge and freezer of the Foodbank. Foodbank couldn't operate without that fridge and freezer. The reason there's this very, very long extension, and huge thanks to Trevor for putting this in, is that all the circuits have gone down here, apart from the ones at the front. And this one at the front goes every now and again if we plug too many things into it. So we're never quite sure, and if we've got a big band in, we're very nervous of it indeed. And you will see over there a warning not to plug into various things for fear of switching off the freezer or overloading the circuit. Trevor is often on alert with old-fashioned fuse wire. I managed to dig some out that I inherited from my father, which, for whenever the circuit, the fuse goes. And if we did lose this circuit here, probably we could not open up and do what we do on a Sunday, what we are doing now. We could not live stream. We could not have the Foodbank here. The building could not be used midweek. Gradually, this building, and I think this church community, would die and dwindle. Because we are the light, our calling is to be the light of Christ in the town centre. So we need to do rewiring urgently, not only to secure what we are doing, not only to be safe. These extensions are, they're safe enough, but it is not wonderfully safe having the extensions and others going all around the building. But we need the rewiring to stay open. We need the new wiring for new AV and PA. We had problems this morning. It's because we can't get the sound desk to the back because we haven't got any wires at the back to plug into. We need the opportunity that rewiring brings for greener, cheaper energy. The opportunity it would bring to put automatic doors in the back so that when we open 2 doors on either side here, the heating just says bye-bye and thanks for the fibres. It just sort of disappears after five minutes. And we need the wiring for new lighting, which we desperately need. We're managing, we can't use this in the evening, we can't hire out the building very much in the evening at all, and that all undermines our income and other things like that, which we need to serve God in this community. So that's a little bit about the urgent need for rewiring. There's a monk. Talk to us a little bit, please, about the lighting, which is harder to describe. How do you describe the light?
I'm no electrician. The thing about being an architect is that we're jack of all trades and master of none. But I remember being in this church 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, for a very similar presentation. And I remember Martin was standing here, and as part of the presentation he said, "Let there be light." And I was very conscious that the moment you said that, Martin, there was a shaft of sunlight came through these yellow windows and across the mosaic. And I thought that was a very prophetic moment, and there's a message there. As far as the renewal of the electrics and the lighting is concerned, we've had an involvement with a consultant specialist who specialises in rewiring and relighting churches. And we interviewed half a dozen or so consultants, and the one that we've selected and we've been working with since, we discovered his expertise is amazing. He was responsible for relighting and rewiring Coventry Cathedral. And the thing about these sorts of works, although this is very much smaller scale, it has to be thought about and it has to be done properly. You can't just run mini trunking all around and do the quickest, cheapest job. What we're concerned about is we get the proper job. And that will involve getting into the roof to run new cables, renewal of all the chandeliers. Obviously, the lighting technology has moved on since the 60-watt tungsten lights. So it's a given that all of the lighting will be current technology with the energy saving, ease of maintenance, long life, which will help the cost and use of the church. Additionally, the lighting for the mural, the mosaic, at the moment is quite patchy, but we're confident that the new proposed floodlighting will effect a transformation as to how it will appear and offer a focal point to the worship. Hand in hand with lighting, there's power, of course, and the same applies to sympathetically providing power, and on the back of that, providing provision for new technology, integrating cableways for IT, data, USB, data cables, and the whole integration of the new technology that would support the worship and the presentation of Martin and the church in the future.
Thank you. Mark, did you want to we've covered everything. Lovely. Des, thank you so much for talking about that. We'll have opportunity for questions. I think the other thing Mr. says, we're looking at having floods up here again. These floods here don't work, so we can include sidelines here as well. So, thank you, Des. Brilliant. So now to introduce Andy. Andy has got quite considerable expertise on organising a Greenbelt Festival for many years, which is a little bit like Spring Harvest, different, but there's some similarities. Andy, talk to us a little about the audio visuals and what we've been working on there.
Sure, thank you. I think there's a lot to be said for a very simple, empty church when it comes to stilling your mind. And when we come here today and there's nothing bombarding you, nobody's bombarding you, and it's a place of rest. But that's always possible, plus adding to it when you want to add to it. So what I'm going to talk about is the opportunity of changing the way that you might do worship on a Sunday morning, but also a bit more than that. As you said, Martin, when someone isn't at the back monitoring the sound, it's quite difficult. So the first thing we want is more speakers across the side and some at the front. I think it was Pat that said, I can't hear you properly. When you have more speakers, it doesn't have to be so loud because every speaker is closer to the people listening to it. So that's an important thing, because then we don't have to be loud and we can feel more comfortable. Whoever's speaking at the front, we can be turned up more easily without the feedback that we get in the ear. So that's one thing that's had to be, is going to be good about adding to the sound. The thing I also find very interesting, even when I walked in here this morning and I saw that screen there, I thought, oh, I wonder what's going to happen on that screen. And there's something about introducing a blank screen that introduces a lot of possibilities, I think. What are we going to see today? It could be anything, couldn't it? We didn't know what it was we were going to see. It could have related to the talk, it could have related to a video of something that's been happening in the town. Anything could have happened on that screen. So I think the next thing I think is important about when we add screens to the place, we're adding the possibility of many, many other things happening, not just putting the words of the songs on the screen, but putting a lot more ideas into the room, a lot more uplifting ideas. Even if you had on that screen the picture of, I don't know, let's say some sea lapping up on a sandy shore, I think that would have changed the way we felt about what was being said, because something would have been changing in the room and reminding us of something more than just this space. I think that's the great thing about adding to not just a good quality sound, where we can have good quality music from the band getting better amplified, but adding to the visual attraction of the space, something more that creates ideas in our minds, because out there, outside this beautiful building, is a big, big wide world, and we're used to seeing it on our TV screens, we're used to feeling the warmth of those images, or being upset, or being, triggered in many, many ways by the visual use. And I think in doing that, I think we'll be talking about one screen there, screens there that are closer to you, so you end up seeing this. And then even the possibility of, on occasions, adding to this so that the whole platform could be used and the front piece could be covered just for that moment with a large screen, which you can take down, so that you end up with the building being used in many other ways, many ways. So if there's a concert here, the concert can have a screen that comes down again afterwards, but you're using the space in many more ways as the years go through. And I think there's something about that that's about future-proofing the church. Future-proofing, by which I mean, when we are dead and gone, and I noticed the wiring went in the year I was born, so no wonder it's feeling old. When we are dead and gone, people will be using this space, and they'll be using it, I am sure, in ways that involve many modern media. And I think it's time that we start doing that. It's time that we realise that that's the possibility. And that's not taking anything away, it's adding to it, particularly if it's done tastefully. And the great thing about the Church of England, it doesn't let you do it if you're not doing it tastefully. So we've been through some of that process, and we've been describing the project that we're visiting to the AAC, is that what it's called? Can't remember what that means. But in that sense, we're saying we're going to make this more than what it is, and if we don't want it anymore, we can turn it off again. But when we do want it on, we can turn it on, and we can have more reliable sound, and we can have more reliable projection from the bands, because we put it all together, and we're still in control, and we can make this more beautiful when we want it than it is in its resting state.